This is Senator James Lankford back in my office in Washington, D.C. We have a trial going on now officially for impeachment of the President of the United States. I thought each day after the proceedings end, no matter what time they end, about an hour or so afterwards, I would gather my thoughts and just kind of share what I think is going on right now and try to give information to everybody of what actually happened today and what is coming up next so you can get a chance to get a more complete version. So every single day, about an hour after the testimony and everything ends in the Senate, I'll try to come here and be able to give you some talk back on it. Let me talk through today. Today, there were two meeting times. At noon today, Eastern time, the House managers came over to the Senate. They were recognized, they were introduced, they read formally the articles of impeachment about the president to the Senate. We read through all of them out loud, and then we closed. And then at 2 o'clock, the session began again with what's called a live quorum call. It's a formal check to make sure that we have exactly the number of people that is needed there. And then the Chief Justice John Roberts then came in. He recognized himself, saying, "I'm coming at your request from the Senate for the impeachment trial." He was sworn in, and then he turned and then swore in all members of the Senate. We then each had to go up to the Journal and actually sign in that we have taken the oath and we have formally signed the Journal. That's something that's a history piece. And then it adjourned. But it adjourned today right after there was a formal set of requests that were made. The first request that was put out there was a request to have some documents and the physical change of the room to be able to prepare it for the impeachment time. But there was also a reach out to the White House to do a formal declaration to the White House that they're expected to be able to come and to prepare for an impeachment, that they're expected to be able to prepare documents as well for that impeachment time period. And that they're given about 3 days from the White House to be able to prepare documents. There was also two different formal declarations of the House of Representatives that they're expected to also prepare hearing briefs, documents, to be able to present those to the Senate as well so that we can read through those. They're given a 2-day deadline for the first round and then a 4-day deadline for the second one. So all those have to be complete by next Tuesday. By that time period, then the Senate will go back into session and will actually begin the trial itself. Now, the first step in the trial will actually be setting the rules of the trial. This is a normal process on this. The rules of the trial, we tried to have the exact same rules as the Clinton rules in 1999. That was a Republican House that was impeaching a Democrat president and a Democrat-led Senate. And so there was an assumption that we would use the exact same rules because all the roles were reversed. We weren't able to get agreement to do that. But the rules will be very similar now to what it was during that Clinton time period. The House will be given about 24 hours of time to be able to make their case. That's not like one full day, 24 hours in a day. That is 24 hours at the podium to be able to present. Then the White House will be given 24 hours to be able to present their case, equal time. And then after that, senators will be able to ask any question that they want to be able to ask. And there'll be 16 hours set aside for asking questions. Now, those questions, as interesting as that may be, can't be done orally. People are used to seeing senators stand up on C-SPAN and ask their questions or to be able to make a speech. The rules are different in impeachment. The senators cannot speak. In fact, each day, including today, the sergeant at arms walks in at the beginning and says, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, under pain of imprisonment, no one can speak in the chamber." So all of us cannot speak at all. The only people speaking will be the House managers, the White House counsel, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. If there's a time that senators want to be able to talk to each other about what's going on in the process, what's happening, then we'll actually have a quick vote to be able to go into what's called a closed session, because otherwise we can't speak to each other about process, about what's happening on this. When that occurs, there'd be a quick vote to go into closed session. Literally all the gallery would leave, the cameras would turn off. We would have a few moments to be able to talk out loud to each other, bipartisan conversation. Then once that bipartisan conversation ended, we made a decision. Then we would go back into open session. You're going to find that 99.9% of the trial is going to be televised. It's going to all be active. Everybody's going to cover it and be able to watch it. The only moments might be the short closed sessions because officially we can't speak during the trial. We can only speak when it's not trial. So that would mean we'd have to go into closed sessions to be able to do that. And those are going to be brief, I would assume, as we go through the process. So quick review. We'll go through the rules. I'm sure there'll be lots of motions and things on the rules. Some folks wanted to be able to have an agreement on all the witnesses at the beginning. The way the Clinton trial worked was Each side was given 24 hours to make the argument. Senators were given 16 hours to be able to ask questions. After that, there was a decision about witnesses. At that time in 1999, the Senate decided they did want some additional testimony, and they voted at that time to have additional witnesses, and they chose 3 witnesses. They were all deposed. None of those were actually live witnesses in the Senate in 1999. They were all 3 deposed witnesses, and incidentally, all 3 of the witnesses the Senate called in 1999 were witnesses the House had already called earlier, knowing that in 1998, when the House was going through the impeachment process that then transitioned into 1999 for the Senate trial, the House sent over about 18 boxes of information to the Senate with all their depositions and everything else. That was 1999. For this particular trial, the House has sent over basically one big fat notebook is all they have as far as depositions, background, testimony. So it's very, very different than what was all the legwork that was done in 1998. So we'll see if there's a decision on witnesses, but that decision is not at the beginning. That decision is a decision made, does the Senate need more information, or do they have all their questions answered? If they have all their questions answered, then there'll be a statement to say, no, there's not an additional need for witnesses or testimony or depositions, and then it'll move to final decision. Now that's days and days away at this point, but people just need to know on Tuesday when we start, the first hour or 2 is going to be debate about the rules. Should we demand witnesses now, or should we do this like the Clinton trial was done, where witnesses were chosen at the end if needed as we went through the process from there? The obligation is on the House of Representatives, just like on any trial. The obligation is for the prosecutor, that'd be the House at this point, to be able to come and make their case, and then the White House to be able to do their own defense. We sit as, as kind of like a jury. We're not really a jury, and I know a lot of folks have said, well, the senators are all jurors. Well, that's not really true, because if for most of you that have served on a jury before, you know, if you're on a jury, you can't know the defendant, you can't know the prosecutor, you can't know the facts and background of the case. If you know any of those things, they're going to say, no, you can't serve as a juror. But that's not true in this case. All of us know the president, all of us know the background, all of us have read through it, all of us have seen the media reports, we've all read all deposition materials, we're all well prepared, so it's very, very different. We are still senators sitting in it making a decision. We're not speaking during that time period, but we still retain that. You'll find that senators aren't speaking during the session itself, but we can still talk about the case in the morning, in the evening, we can talk about it in media, we can talk about it to each other. So our rules are very different than a typical jury type situation, because this is not a criminal trial and this is not a civil trial. This is a decision of what the House sent over to the Senate to say, does the president deserve, based on this action we accuse him of, does the president deserve to be removed from office? This has only happened 2 other times in American history. In the 1860s with President Johnson, where the House impeached the president, sent him over to the Senate. The Senate then determined at that time, no, we don't like the president, but he's not done something that deserves him being removed from office. And they chose not to remove him from office in the 1860s. This happened in 1999 with Bill Clinton, when Bill Clinton perjured himself under oath, where he lied under oath. And then he was impeached by the House, was sent over to the Senate. The Senate at that time said, yes, he lied under oath. Yes, he did this criminal act, but that does not deserve to be removed from office. So it's the same standard. This is not a statement of a criminal trial or civil trial. It is, does this warrant removal from office? And in many ways, it is a statement of guilt or innocence in some ways. But even beyond that, the Clinton trial determined, yes, he's guilty of this, but no, it doesn't deserve to be removed from office. So this trial runs very different than any other trial you've seen anywhere else, and certainly any trial that we've seen on television or something in the past. But we'll walk through the process together, and I'll try each day to be able to give details like this about an hour afterwards to say what just happened, what do I think happens next, and quite frankly, some of my impressions just from the day and some of the things that I've heard as well. I know most of you are also watching the news and tracking it. I'd encourage you to get multiple different news sources to be able to not just get it from one news source. And I encourage you not to just take headlines, because there'll be a lot of headlines that if you read the story, there's a lot more to it. So I'm going to keep digging and going through the facts. I've already taken my oath to be able to be fair in this process and to be able to go after the facts. And I'm going to continue to be able to pursue that as we walk through the next several days to weeks as this trial continues on. We'll give you updates each day. Again, you can always contact our office. You can go to lankford.senate.gov. That has all the contacts for all 3 of the offices. Or you can get a chance to be able to email us in, or obviously you can get a chance to be able to follow us each day as I try to do this video report each day after the session's over.